It's really good to be here together. Yeah, and it's great that the weather's turning as well. But we're gonna have a great time over the month of August. I just want to say, and a few people away today. Jamie and Vicky away today. They send their love, and it's just a reminder that this is a great time where the pace does slow down through August. Maybe your life is exactly the same, and that's that. But for many of us, it may slow down. I encourage you, have some weeks off, have a day off. If you want to, if you're away, we just bless you and say, have a great rest through August where you can. If you have kids, enjoy time with them and do things that are different. So that's August. But we are going to be going through a series called Stories on Sundays. And so whether you get to be here on a Sunday or you miss one and you catch up, we're really going to be encouraged through stories over this season. And what we're going to be doing is basically hearing the one great story, which is how has Jesus changed my life? But we're going to be hearing that from different people within this congregation, hearing their version of what did Jesus do? How did he make the difference in my life? And what I love about stories and the stories of Jesus coming into our stories is that each one is unique. No one else has had your upbringing, had your education, had your job, had your family of origin, had your situations. Your story is so unique. But at the same time, the story is always the same. Because Jesus comes in, he takes a broken, searching person and he reveals to them that he is the way. He is the truth, the life, the way to the Father. Jesus, he comes to bind up the brokenhearted. He comes to restore us, open the eyes of the blind. He comes and he makes us new. And so while the story is always different, it's also the same as well. The Psalms put it like this. Psalm 40 is great for kind of summing up what stories are about. Just the first 3 verses. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He's given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Yeah, the Psalms are always worth clapping for. I love this summary. It's just 3 verses, but it so captures, I think, what many of us experience in our journey of faith with Jesus. Being in that pit or that situation that seems like there's no way out. Has anyone ever felt like they're there? Maybe it was one time or maybe it's often. It's daily or it's weekly. You find yourself there. But what the psalmist there is capturing is this moment of, God, help me. Again, maybe you've done that once in your life. Maybe you do that on a daily basis. But God hears us. He rescues us from a situation that seems insurmountable, and he puts us on a solid rock. And I love that picture because life is very uncertain. Out there is very uncertain, and in here can be very uncertain. Who has good days and bad? Roller coaster emotions sometimes, but he is steady. He is the rock, and he places us there and doesn't say get on with it, but he walks with us in the steady place. It goes on, it says he puts a song in my mouth. It isn't just religious observance and make sure you pray and turn up to church. You get a song in your heart. You get something within you that just has to come out. As Dave was leading us in praise, we're singing Jesus. I've got to just sing Jesus because you've been so good to me. He puts something within that has to come out. And then it says people see and they think, whoa, something's changed here. That's the thing about story. It affects me, but it goes out and it affects others too. And so that's what we're going to be taking time through interviews like today or where there's short messages, hearing stories. And I want us as a community to approach these Sundays with 3 things. Does anyone appreciate having 3 things to do? They all begin with R, so it might be helpful. The first is to remember. When you hear a story today, next week, catching up online, remember your own story. Allow the story spoken here to just bring gratitude into your heart. Gosh, that was me. Jesus, thank you for finding me. Let that remembrance stir up gratitude. The second one is to rehearse. Rehearse your story. Go over it again. Let it be on the tip of your tongue, the front of your mind. This is what Jesus has done for me. whether 20 years ago or what he's done lately. This week, Jesus did this for me. Let's rehearse our story so it's ready to share. And the last one is reach out. I wonder if there's anyone you might invite, whether you just send them a link and say, this story would be really impactful for my neighbor or my friend or colleague. Send them a link, invite them to come on a Sunday. Who could you reach out to as you think about a story would be just the thing to open them up to Jesus? So 3 things as we're here today: remember, rehearse, and reach out. And for those of you who are exploring faith in Jesus today, online, in this room, I just ask you simply be open. Suspend judgment just for this talk. Maybe you think, I don't believe that, that sounds off. I just encourage you, be curious and be open. Ask questions and let these stories just begin to speak to you. This is who Jesus is to this individual. So that's it. Are you ready for a really good story this morning? We've got an amazing person going to share their story today, an amazing person going to interview them. I encourage you, can you be encouraging to them and engaging? It's really scary to come up here and talk in front of everyone here. You are not scary, but all of you together can be scary. So let's be encouraging, and as they come, Lydia and Yo, why don't you come up now?
Well, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Good morning. So I'm Yo, this one's Lydia. I think, this is very exciting, isn't it? This is a good story. You're in for a treat this morning. Now, Lydia, we're going to find out a bit about her. We're going to find out about life, where she's at today. Tell us about a bit about yourself, please, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and not be really nervous, but I'm sure I'll warm up a little bit. I'm Lydia. I have 2 beautiful daughters. And I live very close to church. I work in a primary school 3 days a week, in the office.
How long have you been part of this family?
I've been coming to CityCoast for 12 years this year.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when you're going to tell us about how you found this church. That's coming, isn't it?
Yeah, at some point.
It's coming at some point. All right, so Lydia, tell us a bit about your background, growing up, teenage years. What do you want to tell us?
Okay, so I grew up in a Christian house. So I went to church with my mum and dad and brother, and it was a spirit-filled church. It was quite normal. We used to have every month a celebration service. People would be falling on the floor and lots of tears. My mum would always cry and be full of joy. And me and my brother would just kind of be sat there going, but still absorbing it. And yeah. So probably when I sort of hit teenage years, my parents broke up or started to break up. They are wonderful people, by the way, and I love them both. And yeah, the church life kind of dwindled a little bit. And me and my brother didn't really want to go to church. We told our grandparents, who used to send us the little workbooks that you could get. You could do like quizzes and stuff, Bible things. Mm-hmm. We were the first of the grandchildren to say, can you stop sending them, please? Because we don't read them. So yeah, that didn't go down too well, but yeah.
And you walk with Jesus today, but I know you haven't always walked with Jesus. So tell us about those years.
So I guess I started a downward spiral of drugs from about the age of 14-ish. Carried on my normal life, went to university, obviously about 18, and yeah, really started to engage in the London clubbing lifestyle, lots of drugs, and just, living. At the time, I thought it was the high life, and carried on doing that for many, many years, traveling, doing what I wanted. Actually, probably not what I wanted, looking back. But at the time, I thought that's what I did want.
And you thought life was good at that point?
I did think life was good. I thought, I'm going to be doing this forever. This is amazing. But I was always aware that there was, something missing. And I guess that's why I did what I did. definitely looking for something. I know I jetted off to India for 6 months to find myself. I lost myself even more, definitely.
So how on earth are you now the lady we know with that background? So, how did you come back to Jesus? How did you find Jesus? Were there people involved? Who was it? What happened?
So I'd spent a year in Australia working and traveling, which was amazing. I calmed down a little bit. I got back and I was, before I went to Australia, I was living in an amazing house in Highgate with friends of my mum and dad. They used to go to church when they were all younger, so they were like heyday Christians. And they had this amazing mansion, and they used to let people like waifs and strays like me come and stay with them for a while. So I was one of those. There was also a couple of really lovely Christian girls living there, and their family was there. Although the girls had grown up, but they were often there. It was a house that was full of God, and we used to say grace, and they used to go off and do their churchy stuff, and they'd come back with people from church on the Sunday and have a sherry, and it would always just be full of people who were loving God. So that was around me all the time. They were always really accepting of me and just never judgmental. They never said, "Oh, what are you doing that for?" They just loved me the way that Jesus loves us, which I didn't know then, but I know now. And it was just God doing what he does best. It's like slowly, just doing what he does, bringing you to him and him to you, and it's amazing. Thanks. God is so good, and even just in worship today, just standing there, just giving all of yourself to him it's just incredible. Sorry to put that bit in. I still get emotional about it because God is so good, and what he's done in my life is just incredible. And that love that was out there looking for something, I didn't know what it was, but I was looking for something and doing stupid things to try and fill that gap. Now God he's in there, he's filled it, and he's just doing amazing things.
Amazing. Yeah. So you lived in this house in Highgate with some wonderful people. You went off to Australia. Did you go back to the house after Australia? I can't remember that detail.
I completely went off track.
It was a good off track. So you were in the house in Highgate.
Yes. So came back. They let me stay in the house again. I said, "Oh, can I come stay for a couple of weeks while I find somewhere else?" Within a month, I got pregnant with Indigo, which was a surprise, but the best thing ever. She's over there. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do because I had this baby in my tummy and I had this lifestyle which I really thought I loved at the time, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But the friends in the house were so supportive. They just said, "Look, just stay here. We're going to support you." And they were amazing. And God just did so much through me having Indigo, and it just built up through the pregnancy. And when I had Indigo, that love. It just opened up so many doors in my heart to God's love, really. I stayed in the house in London for about a year and a half, and I sort of decided I thought I might want to go and find a church, but not the one that they all went to, because it wasn't really my cup of tea. It was a bit, I don't know, not my cup of tea. Where am I going?
That was London.
That was London.
This is Brighton.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a gap somewhere.
So I was going to move to France with my mum and stepdad. They'd just bought a house over there. So I was going to move to France. I had all these properties on pieces of paper in front of me. And I just suddenly went, I'm going to move to Brighton. Totally God. I didn't know at the time, but yeah, totally. Was it divine intervention? And within a month, I'd found my flat, which is just around the corner, and I'd moved in. I'd saved up money so I could pay 6 months upfront rent. And
then there she was. And now you're here. So I know how you ended up here. Do you want to tell everyone else what happened?
Sure. So me and my mum were looking for a bathroom shop. Some of you have probably heard this story before, but I don't think it ever gets old, right? So we were on the corner of the street down there, and we saw a guy who used to work in the fridge shop, which isn't there anymore. And we said, oh, where's there a bathroom shop? He said, there's one down here and there's one up there. And I wanted to go to the one up there because there were more shops and it looked more interesting. And Mum was like, no, let's go down here. So we went to Majestic Bathrooms. And then on the way back, Mum saw an Alpha sign in the outside here. And she said, oh, look, Liddy, there's a church there. Why don't you go there? And I was thinking, yeah, okay. In my own time, Mum, sort of figure it out. But the next Sunday, I woke up on the Sunday morning and I just thought, I'm just going to go to that church. And my mum had been praying for me that morning, just that I would have courage and I would just go. And yeah, I didn't know that at the time either. So I walked in the doors with the pushchair. Somebody helped me up the first set of steps, and then they showed me around to the lift, probably so they didn't have to help me up the second ones. No, probably not. And I remember coming up in the lift, and I could hear the bass music. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like the old days when I used to look for squat parties, so just to follow the sound of the music. And the lift doors opened, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I had Indigo in my arms at that time. And I just came into the back, and I just started flooding with tears. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is home. This is what I've been looking for.
Yeah, see, it's the bass. It's all about the bass.
All about the bass.
So you started coming along. I mean, when you walked in that day, where were you with God?
I mean, I definitely knew I wanted to find out more about him. I mean, I already knew him, but I didn't know him in the way that I knew I could. And I knew that being part of a church was kind of the first step, but I didn't really know about having the relationship with Jesus as like a personal relationship with him, which obviously later I have found out and discovered, which is just amazing.
So, yeah, you came in that week. I mean, I remember meeting her on that day, and there's a number of us in this room that met her on that day, and it was like, okay, she's arrived. But what was the journey that you've taken since that day? How did you get stuck in? What's the process been?
So that was in the June, and in the September I started an Alpha course, which Simon Lewis was running. He's not here today, but that was very, pivotal. Is that the right word?
Significant, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I started going along to that, which I really enjoyed, and then I started coming to church like every Sunday, because over the summer I was a bit kind of, I'll go this week, and then I'll go and do something else another week. So that's when I first started coming every week, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to do this, which was awesome.
And you found a crew, didn't you?
I found a crew. I found a home group, your home group.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily an easy time because I had obviously Indigo. I didn't have a car. Yo lives in Shoreham, and I had just, people around me were amazing. I had Ruth and Simon Lewis who would drive me there. With Indigo, we'd try and put Indigo to bed up in Zoe's bedroom, and she did not want to go to sleep, and I was stressed.
Neither of them
nervous because I didn't know everybody, and just wanted her to go to sleep so I could enjoy and try and understand what was going on. And I felt really nervous and just lack of confidence. But I remember Yo saying to me, "Stick with this. It may be hard now, but the fruit that you'll get from it later, you'll be so thankful." Yeah. And really, that has always stuck with me. I just think if you just make the effort now, and the fruit will come.
Yeah, amazing. Yes, that was a season of our home group, wasn't it? And then, didn't you run the toddler group here for a while?
Yeah, they asked me to start, because I used to come along to Sunbeams, which was the toddler group. So I came along anyway with Indigo, and then, growing a relationship with the people that ran it, they said, how would you feel about doing it? So I did that for a couple of years, which was amazing. Yeah. I think that really helped keeping me kind of grounded and just around people and in the church building, which is always good. Yeah.
And I mean, now she's part of the best team in the church.
Worship team.
But has it been plain sailing? So, I mean, obviously you landed, you got stuck in, you've built relationship, you got part of the community. Has it been plain sailing since you arrived?
No, life isn't though, is it? I got into a relationship with a really gorgeous man who I thought I was going to marry. He wasn't a Christian, but kind of felt right. I was just kind of going forward, full steam ahead.
Got engaged.
got engaged,
We're just about to move away.
just about to move away, and we were going to move. I'd packed up the whole flat. We were going to move on the Wednesday. This was the Monday morning I woke up, and I felt absolute dread in the pit of my innards, and I knew it wasn't right. There'd been a few things before that weren't right, and I'd questioned, and I knew friends were praying for me and trying to get him to come to church and be saved, and is this God's plan? And oh, surely he's going to be saved because I love this man with all my heart. And yeah, but that morning I just woke up and I just could not get out of bed. I just wanted to hide under my duvet, and I just knew. I didn't know what I knew, but I knew I couldn't move forward doing what I was doing. So I called a friend who came over, and we talked it out, we prayed, and we kind of got, pulled the layers apart of what is it? What's this feeling? Why isn't there peace? The question was, do you think we should, do you want to leave? I think it came around, I don't want to leave Brighton. So then the peace came. It's like, okay, that's the decision. I need to stay. So amazingly, I managed to keep my rental agreement. People, they said I could stay. So that was the first thing. So I knew that I was in the right place and needed to stay. I actually remember God say to me when I was in worship one time down here, "You've got to stay in this church." And I was like, where did that come from? But anyway, so I came back to that later and thought, yeah, you haven't told me to go anywhere else, so I kind of need to stick with what you said then. So that all tied up together anyway. And within about a month, the guy was really amazing. He was very gracious. It must be really hard for a non-Christian to hear God's saying something to me, don't know what it is, can you just be patient? I mean, it's difficult if you do believe in God, but I think someone that doesn't have a clue, it must just be so hard. So he gave me about a month, and within that time, it just became clear that the relationship wasn't meant to be.
So that was a very tough season, but some great stuff has come out of that, hasn't it? So, I mean, that was, as an observer, that seemed like a really key moment in your life of like, you're choosing Jesus, and this is like line in the sand moment. I'm moving on now. So since that moment, how would you say you've managed to stay focused, stayed anchored in Jesus? How do you live now? What's changed?
Well, I just want to say that during that time, I needed God's guidance because I just didn't know what to do. Like, I went to the beach once and I said, "Look, Lord, you need to just speak to me, and I need to find some scriptures here that are going to just help me," because that's what I needed. I needed God's word. Yeah. I needed I knew that there was that sure foundation that I could hold on to. And I literally opened my Bible and came across the verse in Haggai, the glory of this temple.
Former temple.
Yeah.
The former glory.
The future glory of this temple will be far greater than its former, yeah. And in this place I will bring peace. So I knew that I wanted peace because I'd experienced lack of peace, and I knew I couldn't move forward without that peace in my life, because without that, just can't live like that.
Yeah. And you found your journal, didn't you, this week?
Yeah, I found my journal of that time during this week, and the scriptures I had written down, just incredible. Things like, "You've wandered long enough, my wayward daughter." Another one was, "It's time to break up camp now. You've been around this mountain enough times, break camp and move on." Just incredible, and just reading it, it's like a book in order of like how God has been faithful and what He's asked me to do and what I've done, and just how He's led me, really.
And so what role does this community play in that? So the scripture's massively important. And then what role does being part of this community play in keeping you anchored?
Oh, just having friends around that know me, that can pray with me, that can ask me, "What you've been up to? How are you?" To be accountable to people, it's just so important. I don't know what I would have done without that, because, being part of a team is incredible, and just having that space to grow and just to be accepted, and for my friends to just be with me on the journey, not to judge me. just knowing God, just walking with him, and living the dream.
So if you look back over this life of yours, the story you've been telling, what would you say to the younger version of you?
I would say, get stuck into a youth group. Talking to you, Indigo, as well. Get stuck into a youth group. Get, people around you that are going to be good for you, that are going to lead you, down the right path with Jesus by your side. Ask questions. Ask people around you that know God. Ask them about their walk with Jesus. Ask them about stories. I'm sure there was something else, but I've gone a bit blank. Just have an open heart. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make bad decisions, because we all do it and we still do it. But just knowing that God is with you and that he accepts you and understands you and knows you, I think that is the thing. Yeah. And knowing who you are in God, what God has done for us and who we are because of him, that identity is so important, especially in today's culture with young people. Just think they need to just know who they are and whose they are. So that's key, I think.
She's amazing, isn't she?
It's God, it's not me.
Yeah. So, okay, I've got one more question. What purpose do you feel you've got now that you're living with Jesus, for Jesus? Well, the purpose is to live for Jesus, but how do you live today?
I live wanting to please Jesus. I want to do whatever he has for me. I don't want to do anything that would displease him. I don't want to walk in a way that would mean that the peace would go. I want to know that I'm walking with him in line with what he wants. My purpose, my beautiful children, what a privilege to have those two people to hopefully pass this amazing news of Jesus to them and just to model our lives like that. That's basically it.
If you know Lydia at all, Jesus just oozes out of her, doesn't he? That there's a joy, there's a deep joy, but it's her knowing, I know that it's her having realised who she is in him and who he says she is. That's the change we've seen over the last 12 years, and it's just beautiful to see. And then it just flows out. That joy flows out, and she touches everyone's life. She works in a school, and I know that the office is a much happier place when she's there. So thank you, Lydia. There's a lot more to this story, but there's only so much time we have on a Sunday morning. But I hope, that's given you all a glimpse of the power of what Jesus can do in your life. If there are people here this morning that can relate to anything that she said, I know she's up for chatting with you, praying with you after this morning, aren't you? Thank you, Lydia.